The house sat on a quiet street in Columbus, Ohio. A narrow lawn. White siding that had started to fade. Wind chimes that rang softly whenever the evening breeze passed through. From the outside, it looked like any other middle-class home. Inside, it held two different childhoods. Sarah Mitchell learned early that love had conditions. Emily Mitchell never had to learn that at all. Sarah was 8, the first time she noticed something she could not explain. Her school clothes came from a cardboard box her mother kept in the hall closet. Folded neatly, but clearly worn. Jeans with softened knees. Sweaters that had already lived a life before her. Still good, her mother would say, handing them over. Emily's clothes came from the mall. New tags. Bright colors. Seasonal styles. On Saturday mornings, their mother would take Emily shopping at Easton Town Center. Sarah stayed home, folding laundry or finishing chores before noon. Next time, her mother would say. There was never a next time. At birthday parties, the difference was louder. Emily's birthdays filled the house with noise. Balloons tied to chairs. A bakery cake with piped frosting. Kids from school, running through the hallway, with sticky fingers and loud laughter. Sarah's birthdays were quieter. Sometimes her father remembered in the evening. Hey, happy birthday, kiddo. A quick hug. A distracted smile. Then back to whatever game was on TV. No cake. No candles. Just another day that felt slightly heavier than the rest. Sarah never asked why. Children notice patterns long before they understand them. At dinner, her father would pass the best cuts of meat toward Emily, without thinking. Make sure your sister gets enough, her mother would add. Sarah got what remained. She ate slowly, carefully, stretching each bite, as if it might disappear too soon. It was not hunger that stayed with her. It was the quiet understanding that she came second. Always. When Emily cried, everything stopped. What happened, baby? Voices softened. Attention shifted. The whole room bent toward her. When Sarah cried, she learned to do it quietly. Upstairs. Door closed. Pillow over her face. Because the one time she cried at the dinner table, her mother sighed, and said something she would never forget. Sarah, you're the older one. You need to be more mature. That sentence followed her through childhood. It explained everything, without answering anything. At school, Sarah did well. Teachers noticed. She's thoughtful. Very focused. Her report cards came home with neat rows of A's. Her mother would glance at them, nod once, and place them on the counter. Emily's grades, even when average, earned celebration. That's my girl. Sarah learned not to expect recognition. Instead, she learned to be useful. She washed dishes without being asked. Helped with homework that was not hers. Kept the house running in small, invisible ways. Visitors would come by and notice Emily first. She's beautiful. Such a bright smile. Then they would turn to Sarah. And you're the older one. Sarah would smile politely. Yes, ma'am. She became easy to overlook. Not because she was small. Because she made herself smaller. At night, lying in her bed, staring at the faint glow of streetlight, through the curtains, she would replay her day. Every word. Every moment. Trying to find the mistake she must have made. Children believe love is something you earn. So when it feels uneven, they assume they are the reason. Sarah carried that belief quietly. Carefully. Like something fragile, that might break if she looked at it too closely. By the time she turned 16, she had stopped asking herself why. Not because she found an answer. Because she realized, no one was going to give her one. By senior year of high school, the difference between the two sisters was no longer subtle. It was planned. Emily's college process was a family project. Campus tours in nearby states. Weekend trips. Hotel stays. Conversations at dinner about majors, dorms, future plans. Their parents spoke about it with pride. "We're making sure she has the best start." Sarah listened. When she brought up her own applications, the response was brief. There was no college fund waiting for her. No savings set aside. Just possibility. And distance. So she handled it herself. She filled out applications late at night at the kitchen table. The hum of the refrigerator her only company. She researched scholarships between classes. Worked part-time at a grocery store on weekends, saving what little she could. When her acceptance letter came from Ohio State, she opened it alone. No one was home. She read it once. Then again. Not smiling. Not crying. Just breathing a little slower than before. Because now it was real. And now it was entirely on her. She enrolled. Took out loans she barely understood. Picked up 2 jobs before the semester even started. Waitressing in the evenings. Tutoring freshman students, in writing on campus. Her days became a routine of movement. Classes in the morning. Work in the afternoon. More work at night. Then studying, long after her body asked her to stop. There were nights she fell asleep, with her textbooks open. Days she skipped meals to save money. Moments when she watched other students swipe cards their parents paid for, and felt something tighten in her chest. But she never called home to complain. Because she already knew what she would hear. "You're strong. You'll figure it out." So she did. Semester by semester. Bill by bill. Exhaustion became normal. So did independence. By the time she reached her final year, something had shifted inside her. Not in a dramatic way. Quietly. She no longer waited for help. She no longer expected fairness. She had learned how to carry her own weight. And then some. When she graduated, her parents attended. They sat in the stands. Clapped when her name was called. Took pictures afterward. Her father hugged her briefly. "Proud of you." Her mother smiled. "You did well." It should have felt like everything she had been waiting for. Instead, it felt distant. Like something arriving, long after it was needed. Still, she nodded. Because even delayed acknowledgement can feel like something. Deep down, a small part of her held on to a quiet hope. Maybe now things will be different. When Sarah landed her first full-time job in Chicago, she moved without hesitation. A small apartment. 2nd floor. Bare walls. Furniture she bought piece by piece. It wasn't much. But it was hers. She worked hard. Kept her head down. Built a life that felt steady. Then, slowly, the calls began. At first, they sounded like connection. "Hey, sweetheart, just checking in." Her mother's voice, warmer than usual. Sarah felt something soften. Maybe this is it. Then came the second call. "Your sister's tuition is a little tight this semester." Then another. "Your dad had some medical expenses." Then another. "We're a bit behind on a few things." The pattern revealed itself quietly. They reached out when they needed something. Not when she did. Still, she helped. Without hesitation. Without keeping score. She transferred money for tuition gaps. Covered part of a hospital bill. Sent what she could, even when it stretched her. Each time, she told herself the same thing. This is what family does. But another thought sat just beneath it. Maybe this time they'll really see me. Gratitude came in small doses. Thanks, honey. We appreciate it. Then silence. Until the next request. Emily, who had received everything growing up, was rarely mentioned in these conversations, as someone who could contribute. That detail did not escape Sarah. But she pushed it aside. Because facing it meant admitting something painful. That nothing had really changed. She was still the one expected, to carry what others would not. Still the one who showed up. Still the one who hoped. And hope, for her, had always been quiet. Stubborn. And hard to let go. By the time Sarah turned 34, her life had settled into something steady. Not perfect. Not easy. But steady. She lived in a modest townhouse, just outside Chicago, in a neighborhood where people waved, when they passed and kept their lawns trimmed, just enough to feel in control of something. Her husband, Daniel, had been the one thing in her life that never felt uncertain. He was not loud. Not overly expressive. But he was present in a way she had never experienced before. When she spoke, he listened. When she was quiet, he noticed. He had a way of asking simple questions, that made her feel seen. Did you eat today? Are you tired? Do you want to talk about it? No one had ever asked her those things, and waited for an honest answer. With him, she did not have to earn her place. She already had one. Their life together was built in small, ordinary ways. Grocery runs on Sunday mornings. Takeout on nights, when work drained them both. Folding laundry side by side, arguing lightly over whose turn it was to cook. Nothing about it was dramatic. And that was what made it safe. When their son, Caleb, was born, the house changed in the best way. More noise. More mess. More reason to keep going. Daniel held their son like something sacred. Careful. Steady. Certain. For the first time in her life, Sarah felt like she had a family that chose her without hesitation. Then, in the middle of an ordinary week, everything stopped. Daniel left for work on a Tuesday morning. He kissed her on the forehead, the same way he always did. See you tonight. She nodded, half focused on packing Caleb's lunch. Drive safe. It was the kind of exchange people forget as soon as it happens. Because it always happens again. Except this time, it didn't. The call came just after noon. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Hello. The voice on the other end was calm. Too calm. Is this Sarah Mitchell? Yes. There's been an accident. The rest of the words blurred together. Hospital. Critical. You should come. She does not remember the drive. Only the feeling. Like the ground beneath her had disappeared, but her body kept moving anyway. At the hospital, everything smelled like antiseptic and urgency. Machines beeped in steady rhythms that did not match her heartbeat. A doctor spoke to her in measured tones. They tried. There was nothing more they could do. Daniel was gone. Just like that. No warning. No time to prepare. No final conversation that made sense of anything. One moment, he existed in her world. The next, he did not. Grief does not arrive in a single wave. It comes in fragments. In disbelief first. This is not real. Then in silence. A quiet so heavy, it presses against your chest. Then in sudden, sharp moments. Reaching for your phone to call them. Turning to speak and realizing there is no one there. Sarah moved through those first days, like someone learning how to exist again from the beginning. People came. Neighbors brought food. Friends sat with her. Spoke gently. Offered help. But grief is a private place. Even when others are near. At night, after everyone left, the house felt too large. Too empty. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the space where Daniel used to sleep. Waiting. For a sound. A movement. Something that would prove this was not permanent. But it was. Caleb, too young to understand, asked simple questions. "Where's Daddy?" Each time, her heart broke in a new way. "He's not coming home, baby." Children accept truth differently. He nodded. Then asked again the next day. And the next. Each time, she answered. Each time, it hurt just as much. The bills began to pile up quietly. Medical costs. Funeral arrangements. House expenses. Life did not pause to give her space to grieve. It kept moving. Demanding. Unforgiving. For weeks, she held everything together the only way she knew how. By functioning. Wake up. Feed Caleb. Handle paperwork. Answer calls. Make decisions she did not feel ready to make. She did not cry in front of people. She did not break down. She stayed composed. Because that was what she had always done. But one evening, after putting Caleb to bed, the weight became too much. The house was silent. The kind of silence that makes your thoughts louder. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at her phone. There was one place she had not turned to yet. Not for help. Not for money. Just for something simple. Connection. She picked up her phone and called home. Her mother answered on the second ring. "Hello." For a moment, Sarah could not speak. Because she realized she did not know how to ask for what she needed. "I just wanted to hear your voice." There was a pause. "Oh, okay. How are you holding up?" The question sounded practiced. Like something you say because it is expected. "I'm trying." Another pause. "Well, you have to stay strong. For your son." The conversation moved quickly after that. Practical words. General advice. No one asked her what she was really feeling. No one sat in the silence with her. After a few minutes, the call ended. She stared at the phone for a long time. Feeling exactly the same as before she dialed. Alone. A few days later, her phone rang again. Her mother. Sarah answered. "Hi, Mom." "Sarah, how are you?" "I'm okay." There was a brief exchange. Surface level. Safe. Then her mother's tone shifted slightly. "We were wondering if you might be able to help your sister." Sarah closed her eyes. Not in anger. In recognition. "Help with what?" "Her rent is a bit behind this month." The word settled heavily in the space between them. For a moment, Sarah did not respond. Because something inside her was trying to catch up with what she had just heard. Her husband was gone. Her life had been turned upside down. And somehow, the pattern remained unchanged. She was still the one they called. Still the one expected to give. Still the one whose pain did not interrupt the flow of their needs. "Yes," she said finally. The answer came out automatically. Conditioned. Familiar. "I'll send something." "Thank you, sweetheart. We knew we could count on you." The call ended shortly after. Sarah placed the phone on the table gently. Then she sat there. Still. For a long time. And then, quietly, she broke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a slow, steady release of everything she had been holding in. Tears fell without resistance. Not just for Daniel, but for herself. For every moment she had shown up for people who did not show up for her. For every time she had been strong when she needed to be held. For every time she had convinced herself that this was what love looked like. She wiped her face eventually. Stood up. Walked to Caleb's room. Watched him sleep. Small. Safe. Unaware of the weight she carried. And in that moment, something shifted. Not completely. Not yet. But enough. Enough for a quiet thought to form. One she had never allowed herself to fully consider before. I cannot keep living like this. The funeral came and went. People gathered. Spoke kind words. Shared memories. Then they returned to their lives. Sarah stayed behind. In the same house. With the same silence. But she was not the same. Because something inside her had begun to change. Slowly. Quietly. But permanently. Grief does something quiet before it does anything loud. It rearranges you. Not all at once. Not in ways people can see. But slowly, in the way you respond to things that once felt normal. By the third month after Daniel's death, Sarah had returned to work. Not because she was ready. Because life required it. Mornings became mechanical. Wake up before Caleb. Pack his lunch. Lay out his clothes. Check emails while the coffee brewed. Move through each task with precision, not emotion. She had learned that if she stayed in motion, she did not have to sit too long with what she had lost. Her co-workers were kind in the beginning. I'm so sorry. Take all the time you need. But time, in the real world, has limits. Deadlines returned. Expectations followed. And Sarah met them. The way she always had. By carrying more than she should. At home, she created a routine for Caleb. Dinner at 6. Bath at 7. Bed by 8:30. She read to him every night, even when her voice felt tired. Even when her mind drifted. Even when grief sat heavy in her chest. Because one thing had become clear to her. He would not grow up feeling unseen. Not the way she did. That decision settled deep inside her. Like a line drawn quietly but firmly. Her phone still rang. Less often than before. But enough to remind her that nothing had changed on the other end. Her mother would call to check in. The conversations followed a pattern. A few minutes of surface concern. Then a shift. Subtle. Predictable. Well, things have been a bit difficult here. Sarah listened. She always listened. But something had started to change in the way she heard those words. Before, they came with urgency. Now, they came with distance. Not because the problems were not real. But because she had begun to see something she had ignored for years. They only reached for her when they needed something. Never when she did. That realization did not come with anger. It came with clarity. And clarity is quieter. But stronger. One afternoon, as she sat at her desk reviewing a report, her phone buzzed. Her mother's name flashed across the screen. Sarah stared at it for a moment before answering. Hi, Mom. Sarah, are you busy? A little. What's going on? There was a pause. The kind that usually meant something was coming. Well, your father hasn't been feeling well again. Sarah closed her eyes briefly. Not out of frustration. Out of familiarity. What happened? He's been in and out of the clinic. The bills they're adding up. Of course they were. They said he might need further tests. Sarah leaned back in her chair. Her gaze fixed on the ceiling. In the past, this is where she would respond quickly. Don't worry. I'll handle it. The words would come without thought. Without pause. But this time, something stopped them. Her mind moved differently now. Not rushing to fix. Not immediately absorbing the weight. Just observing. How much is it? She asked. Her mother mentioned a figure. Not small. Not impossible. But significant enough to matter. Sarah remained quiet. On the other end, her mother continued. We were hoping you could help, just this once. You know how things are. Just this once. Sarah almost smiled at that. Because nothing had ever been just once. It had been years. Years of quiet giving. Years of stepping in. Years of being the answer to problems that were never hers to carry alone. Her eyes moved to the photo frame on her desk. Daniel. Holding Caleb as a baby. Both of them smiling. For a moment, everything else faded. And she remembered something simple. No one had asked her how she was managing. Not really. Not beyond polite words. No one had said. Are you okay financially? Do you need help with Caleb? Are you holding up? The silence on that side had been loud. But she had ignored it. Until now. Sarah. Her mother's voice pulled her back. Yes, I'm here. Another pause. This one heavier. Because something inside her was shifting into place. Not out of anger. Out of truth. I don't have anything to give right now. The words settled between them. Clear. Calm. Final. For a second, there was no response. Then her mother spoke again, softer. What do you mean? Sarah sat up straight. Her voice did not shake. I mean, I can't help with this. Another silence. Longer this time. Uncomfortable. Unfamiliar. Because this was not how these conversations usually went. Sarah, it's your father. I know. And he's not well. I understand that. Then how can you? Her mother stopped herself. As if unsure how to finish the sentence. Sarah finished it quietly. How can I say no? The question hung in the air. Not as an accusation. As a fact. Yes, her mother said finally. How can you? Sarah took a slow breath. Not to steady herself. She was already steady. To make sure she said what needed to be said. For years, I've helped whenever something came up. Her tone remained even. Not defensive. Not emotional. Just honest. I didn't complain. I didn't question it. I just did what I could. Her grip tightened slightly on the phone. But when Daniel died. She paused. The words still carried weight. I needed support too. Silence. I wasn't asking for money, she continued. I just needed someone to be there. Her voice softened, but it did not break. And no one was. On the other end, her mother said nothing. Because there was nothing easy to say to that. Sarah let the silence sit. For once, she did not rush to fill it. I can't keep being the only one people turn to, she said. And I can't keep saying yes when it costs me more than I can afford. Her mother exhaled slowly. So what are we supposed to do now? There it was. Not concern for her. Not understanding. Just the problem, still waiting to be solved. Sarah nodded to herself, as if confirming something she had already accepted. I think it's time you call Emily. The name felt different on her tongue. Not heavy. Not charged. Just accurate. Another silence. But this one carried something new. Not confusion. Recognition. Because they both knew the truth behind that statement. Emily had never been asked. Not in the same way. Not with the same expectation. But she has her own responsibilities, her mother said carefully. Sarah almost laughed. Not out of humor. Out of clarity. So do I. The words landed firmly. Without apology. Without explanation. For a moment, no one spoke. Then her mother's voice returned, quieter than before. I didn't realize you felt this way. Sarah leaned back in her chair again. Her eyes returned to the photo on her desk. I didn't realize it either, she said. Not until now. Not until everything else had been stripped away. The call ended shortly after. No resolution. No agreement. Just an ending. Different from the others. When Sarah placed her phone down, she waited. For guilt. For doubt. For that familiar pull to call back and fix everything. It did not come. Instead, there was something else. A stillness. Not empty. Full. Like a space that had finally been cleared. She sat there for a long moment, letting it settle. Then she returned to her work. Not because the conversation did not matter. But because, for the first time, it did not consume her. That evening, she picked up Caleb from daycare. He ran toward her the moment he saw her. Mom! She bent down, catching him in her arms. Holding him a little tighter than usual. How was your day? I drew a picture. Really? I want to see it. As they walked to the car, he talked about colors and shapes and things that did not carry weight. She listened. Fully. Present. Because she could. Because something inside her was no longer stretched thin. That night, after Caleb fell asleep, she sat alone in the living room. The house was still quiet. Daniel was still gone. Her problems had not disappeared. But something had changed. She had said no. Not out of anger. Not out of revenge. Out of necessity. Out of truth. And in doing so, she had done something she had never done before. She had chosen herself. The well she had drawn from for years, had finally been acknowledged for what it was. Not endless. Not automatic. But something that needed care. Something that could run dry. And for the first time in her life, she understood something clearly. She was allowed to protect it. The weeks after that phone call did not bring drama. No arguments. No long messages. No sudden apologies. Just distance. Not the kind that hurts. The kind that settles. At first, Sarah noticed it in small ways. Fewer calls. Shorter conversations. No immediate follow-up requests. It felt unfamiliar. For years, her phone had been a steady line of need. Now, it was quiet. She expected to feel uneasy about it. To wonder if she had done something wrong. To replay the conversation in her mind, and search for a better way to have said it. But that did not happen. Instead, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. Relief. Not loud. Not overwhelming. Just a steady, quiet easing of pressure she had carried for so long that she no longer noticed its weight. Life continued. Morning still came early. Caleb still needed breakfast, clean clothes, help finding his shoes when he forgot where he left them. Work still demanded her attention. Deadlines did not soften. Bills still arrived on time. Grief still lingered. Daniel's absence did not fade, just because she had drawn a boundary. There were still moments when it caught her off guard. Passing a store he used to like. Hearing a song he once played in the car. Watching Caleb laugh in a way that looked so much like him. Those moments did not become easier. But they became familiar. And familiarity, in its own way, is a kind of stability. One Saturday morning, Sarah stood in the kitchen making pancakes. Caleb sat at the counter, swinging his legs, talking about something that only made sense to him. And then my teacher said I draw the best trees. The best trees? Sarah smiled, flipping a pancake carefully. Yeah. Better than Jake. That's serious competition. He nodded, completely certain. She placed a plate in front of him. He picked up his fork, then paused. Mom. Yes. Are you happy? The question came without warning. Simple. Direct. The kind children ask, without realizing how deep it goes. Sarah leaned against the counter for a moment. Not to avoid the answer. To consider it honestly. For years, happiness had felt like something distant. Something that belonged to other people. Something she would reach once everything else was finally in place. But standing there, in a quiet kitchen, with sunlight coming through the window and her son waiting for her answer, she realized something had changed. I think I'm getting there, she said. Caleb nodded, satisfied, and went back to eating. For him, that was enough. For her, it was everything. She stopped trying to fix her relationship with her parents. Not out of anger. Out of acceptance. They called sometimes. She answered. They spoke about everyday things. Weather. Neighbors. Family updates. The conversation stayed on the surface. And she let them. Because she no longer needed them to go deeper. She no longer needed them to become something they had never been. That need had quietly let go of her. Emily called once. A short conversation. Awkward in places. Polite. At one point, her sister said something that lingered after the call ended. I didn't realize you were handling so much all those years. Sarah had paused before responding. Neither did I, she said. It was not blame. It was truth. And truth, when spoken without anger, has a way of landing differently. Over time, Sarah built a rhythm that belonged to her. Work. Home. Caleb. Rest. She made small changes. On Sundays, instead of catching up on everything she had not finished during the week, she rested. Truly rested. She read books again. Took Caleb to the park without checking her phone every few minutes. Cooked meals that were not rushed. She learned how to sit still without feeling guilty. That alone felt like learning a new language. Financially, she became more careful. Not just in spending. In giving. She still helped when she could. But now, it came from a place of choice. Not expectation. Not pressure. And that difference changed everything. Her home began to feel different too. Not just quieter. Safer. There was no tension in the air. No unspoken comparison. No feeling of having to prove anything to anyone. Just space. For her. For Caleb. For a life that did not require her to shrink to fit inside it. One evening, as she tucked Caleb into bed, he looked up at her and said, "You're always here." She smiled. "Where else would I be?" He shrugged. "Some moms are busy a lot." She brushed his hair back gently. "I'm busy too. But you're still here. She paused. Because those words carried more meaning than he understood. Yeah, she said softly. I am. After he fell asleep, she stayed in the doorway for a moment. Watching him. Breathing in the quiet. And she realized something that felt both simple and profound. This was what she had needed growing up. Not perfection. Not constant attention. Just presence. Consistency. A sense that someone would choose you, not out of obligation, but because they wanted to. She could not change her past. She could not rewrite the childhood she had lived. But she could decide what kind of life she built moving forward. And she had. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But with intention. Piece by piece. Boundary by boundary. Choice by choice. She walked back into the living room and sat down. The house was still. Her phone lay on the table. Silent. For once, it did not feel like something she had to monitor. It was just there. She picked it up briefly. Scrolled through a few messages. Then set it down again. No urgency. No pull. Just a quiet sense of control. Her life was not perfect. There were still hard days. Still moments when grief returned unexpectedly. Still questions that had no answers. But there was also something else now. Peace. Not the kind that comes from everything going right. The kind that comes from knowing you will be okay even when things go wrong. Because you are no longer waiting for someone else to make it better. You have learned how to stand on your own. And in that quiet, steady life she built, Sarah finally found what she had been reaching for all along. Not their approval. Not their attention. Not their love. Her own. And this time, it stayed. Some stories are hard to explain, but easy to recognize. If this felt familiar, you're not alone here. Subscribe to my channel for more empowering stories.